Greetings from the Lutheran Theological Seminary at Philadelphia, a teaching seminary of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. A seminary that has been preparing leaders for ministries of word and service and word and sacrament for 150 years. The seminary opened its doors in Center City, Philadelphia on October 4th, 1864. The seminary was bilingual. It would offer courses in both English and German, so that pastors could preach and teach in the growing number of German and English congregations in the Delaware Valley. It was an urban seminary, and it reflected the major demographic shift in American society. As a result of the expanding railroad network, as a result of urbanization and industrialization, Philadelphia, Bethlehem, Allentown, Easton, Camden, Trenton grew rapidly. It was very easy to transport anthracite coal from northern Pennsylvania to these urban centers and the factories that were being built. Attractive jobs brought workers to these urban centers, and new neighborhoods with new homes were constructed to house them. These neighborhoods needed churches. There was a cry for leadership in these congregations, and the seminary answered that call by opening its doors on October 4th, 1864. The establishment of the seminary in Center City, Philadelphia, was a fulfillment of the vision of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, who arrived in Philadelphia in November 1742. He always believed in the necessity of having schools and a seminary in the Delaware Valley in order to secure and stabilize the Lutheran witness to the proclamation of the gospel. Already in fall of 1746, he is writing his advisors in London, his advisors in Halle, about the need for schools, particularly free schools, for orphans and the children of poor widows. He is so happy in 1751 when he can have a teacher, Michael Walter, teaching in New Hanover on a regular basis. And then by 1761, he is so happy because there are schools in Philadelphia, and he has schools in the rural parishes of Trapp, New Hanover, and Spring City. The result of those schools, that surge in those schools, was the result of a program, a collaboration, a collective effort between English and German local officials. In 1753, William Smith was ordained an Anglican minister in Great Britain. He arrived in Philadelphia with a new plan and funding for schools. Before he left Great Britain, he founded the Society for the Propagation of Christian Knowledge among the German population of Pennsylvania. He had established a means of collecting monies in Great Britain and having those monies sent here to the Delaware Valley. And he would offer those monies as salaries for teachers in schools in Philadelphia and in the rural communities that were populated by German settlers. Henry Melchior Muhlenberg loved the idea because Henry Melchior Muhlenberg had a great deal of status. He had chickens, horses, pigs, he had eggs, bread, apples, but the one thing that Henry Melchior Muhlenberg could not lay his hand on easily was cash. And so when William Smith proposed in 1754 that they would establish a system of schools and have it funded from donations out of Great Britain, Henry Melchior Muhlenberg was on board. Because if he could have children taught to read, they could open their Bibles, they could read published sermons, they could sing the hymns in their hymnal, and then they could read Luther's catechism. And Henry felt that through those means, he could offer those individuals power of self-definition and formation of their faith in British North America. One of the key players in this charity school system that was proposed by William Smith was William Allen, for whom Allen's Lane and Allentown is named. In 1750, William Allen became the Chief Justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. At the same time, he came here to Mount Airy and he purchased 47 acres. The seminary is built on a part of that estate. And to my right, he built a large stone house that he called Mount Airy. This was his summer country house. And William Allen and Henry Melchior Muhlenberg got along famously. In 1762, William Allen stepped in and he helped Henry Melchior Muhlenberg sort out the problems in St. Michael's Lutheran Church in Germantown. In 1763, William Allen was on the same ship as Peter, Freddie, and Henry because they were headed back to London and then on to Halle for education. And Chief Justice William Allen was on that ship returning to London, and he acted as a chaperone for the three boys for the passage from Philadelphia to London, England. Henry Melchior Muhlenberg noted in his journals that Chief Justice William Allen returned to Philadelphia in 1764, and then in August of 1765, Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, who was working in Philadelphia serving St. Michael's and Zion congregations, went to the house of Chief Justice William Allen to pay him a call. He was not at home, and as Henry noted in his journals, William Allen was at his country estate. That estate was right here, to my right. I've gotten ahead of the story, so I'd like to step back a few years to another August, but this time August 10th, 1754, because this house hosted a very famous meeting. Chief Justice William Allen was here. William Smith came out of Philadelphia along with the Reverend Richard Peters, James Hamilton, and none other but Benjamin Franklin. These gentlemen sat in the house here, next to Germantown Avenue, and they began to outline the program of funneling the monies for the charity schools in the Delaware Valley to help German children learn how to read both in English and in German. At first, by 1755, there were 25 schools, but then they began to decline, and there were only 9 in 1760, and by 1763, the funding stopped for these schools, and Henry lamented the fact that he had to shut down the schools in New Hanover, Trapp, and Spring City. Part of the problem was another German leader, the publisher Christoph Sauer, the radical sectarian who had no time for church, state church, who had no time for ordained clergy, whose printing house was 2 miles south of the seminary. And it was in his newspaper that he began to give the charity schools some bad press. He accused them of anglicizing the children so that they would forget their German and they would only be able to read in English. Henry didn't care whether they read in English and or German. Language was a vehicle, was a means for the propagation of the gospel. It was a means for the propagation of the Lutheran witness to the proclamation of the gospel. But Christoph Sauer took the day, and the schools had to close. But Henry never stopped dreaming of a school system. Henry never stopped dreaming of a seminary in the city of Philadelphia that would assist the Lutheran Church in the Delaware Valley. He kept it in the prayers and before the people, particularly the leaders in London and the leaders in Halle. In 1765, he noted that the English Presbyterians were growing at a rapid rate in the Delaware Valley and would soon outnumber the English Anglicans. Why? Because they had several seminaries established along the eastern seaboard. They were able to train clergy here on this side of the Atlantic. They were able to supply the growing number of Presbyterian congregations in the Delaware Valley with trained leaders. And Henry said, that's what we need here. That's what we need here for our German Lutheran witness. One of the most moving moments came in the dedication of Zion Lutheran Church in June of 1769. The seminary was still a part of Henry's strategic plan. It was a part of his vision. And in the dedication of that large Lutheran church that could seat 2,500 people easily, Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, in the prayers of intercession, had Mr. Kuhn read this before all assembled in that festival service. Mr. Kuhn prayed for a seminarium which is yet to be established. That seminary came into existence in 1773 through the ability and gifts of Johann Kunze, who arrived in Philadelphia and was trained as a classic scholar. Through his dedication and perseverance for 3 years, individuals were trained in the city of Philadelphia to serve the congregations in the Delaware Valley. But the outbreak of war in 1776 forced its closure. But it never left the prayers. It never left Muhlenberg's strategic plan. And it returned to this area in 1864, so that individuals living in the Delaware Valley could come to this school, could be trained in leadership positions for ministries of word and service and word and sacrament. They came out here in 1889, where it was less dusty, where it was less noisy. And here they built their school, that school that still trains individuals. Here on the former estate of Chief Justice William Allen, who was also concerned about schools and education for individuals in the Delaware Valley. So it is only fitting that we here in Mount Airy work for the furthering of education, for the ministry of the proclamation of the gospel. And that's what we do and have been doing for 150 years. Following in the footsteps of Chief Justice William Allen, of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, and all the others, coming out here to Mount Airy under the guidance of William Julius Mann, Charles Porterfield Krauth, Adolf Spaeth, Henry Eister Jacobs, who in addition to offering an education in English and German, also began to discover the wisdom of the Lutheran confessional documents and returned them to the focus of seminary education and the life of the congregation. So we stand on a very important threshold, celebrating 150 years of dedicated service, preparing individuals for leadership roles in word and service and word and sacrament. We stand on a threshold to begin celebrating another 150 years of dedicated service, serving the church in the 21st century. We have no instruction manual. We stand like Muhlenberg before and in front of a future for which we have some possibilities, some insights, but we have no instruction manual. We give thanks for the wisdom of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, who left us some indication of things that we need in our equation, and an important component of that equation for serving in the 21st century are seminaries, training individuals. And so we will follow in the footsteps of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. We will follow in the footsteps of William Julius Mann, of Charles Porterfield Krauth, Henry Eister Jacobs, and Adolf Spaeth, who in addition to perpetuating the Muhlenberg legacy also rediscovered the beauty and the wonderful truths of the Lutheran confessions and used them in the instruction of seminarians who could then transplant those insights in the life of a congregation. And so I close asking you to do what Henry Melchior Muhlenberg did in Zion Lutheran Church in June of 1769, that you, like he, would include a seminary in your prayers. Pray that God would be with us to inspire us and to lead us as we move forward, as we lean forward into the future. Pray with Muhlenberg and all of the cloud of witness that we continue to be faithful to that vision, to his strategic plan, and to his vision for a seminary here in the Delaware Valley. Thank you.